Well, here we go. I think this is episode 10, honey, Ryan. I never know. I have to ask him. He's my guy who knows this sort of stuff. Today, we have Shane Saxton, our buddy from up north of Jackson, selling a bunch of stuff up there. We're going to talk about what it is to be in a seller's market right now. Before we do that, hey, of course, Southern Ag Credit is Hunt Landman Podcast is brought to you by Southern Ag Credit. They take good care of us. I know they do stuff with Shane, little different market up there, but the same great rates and the same great service with Southern Ag Credit. They do stuff for us personally. They do stuff for our clients, and they're great people to work with. So y'all check them out, Southern Ag Credit. Shane, thank you for being here, bud.
Man, I'm glad I could come. It's not too far to drive down here.
It'll take about an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, just a lot of pine trees on the way.
That's right. Little history. So I went to Belhaven, graduated from up there, and when I first went up there, Shane's brother was the same class as me. We knew a lot of the same people from some high school sports and things like that. And of course, we both like to hunt too much. And then, Shane, how much younger are you, your brother?
2 years younger.
Okay, so Shane's 2 years younger, which makes him an old man just like myself. And anyway, we started hunting together and stuff and just stayed in touch. And then Shane has done a lot of the outdoor TV stuff like I've done. And then got into real estate. This is your third or fourth year?
This is the third year.
And look, he's rocking and rolling. He if new Ryan don't get to work, he's going to catch us.
I don't know about that now.
But Shane, thank you for being here. All right, today we're going to dive right into this thing. Right now, as everybody knows, this is a seller's market. I want to touch on two main topics of this. What is a seller's market, and what does that mean right now? Now, this seller's market, we can talk about this and what this means in years to come, but what does that mean right now? What are you seeing up in your market, Shane? Tell us a little bit about what you do up there.
Yeah, mostly I would say my core area is Yazoo County, Madison County, and Hinds and Warren County. Some Holmes County and Natala stuff, but mostly Yazoo and Madison's probably my core stuff. But you know, the market that we have up there is similar to y'all's. We have an inventory problem, you know, and especially the quality stuff. I mean, as soon as it hits the market, you know, we used to say, you know, the smaller tracts go fast, so you better, you know, get on it. But we're seeing now, it doesn't matter if 1,000-acre tract or 80-acre tract, they're going quick. And, you know, a lot of people used to say, hey, well, let's offer them this, you know, let's see if the seller will take it. You know, and I would say before the last year, you know, there was some negotiation room in there. But now it seems like, you know, whatever the seller's, you know, the list price is it's not a whole lot of wiggle room in it. And it really is frustrating to buyers because they all think, you know, hey, I want to get a deal. But at the end of the day, it's you know, it's selling. I mean, obviously the land values, we don't see them ever going down. I mean, you don't ever hear a phone call from a seller say, hey man, think about selling a place, the value's going down. You know, it's not like looking at the stock market, you know, to get frustrated and like, man, it's going down, I'm ready to sell. Well, that's the beauty of land. They're not making any more of it, so the sellers know what they got. So even in the seller's market, the buyers, and it's a win for them, in my opinion, with the interest rates that Southern Ag giving nowadays. I mean, you're getting interest rates after their dividends. I mean, you're in the 2%. I mean, that's crazy. Cheap money.
Free money.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost an interest-free loan.
And Shane has some history with timber, and you know, if our timber at a minimum of growing 5 to 8% a year, and your interest rate's only 2.7, you know, you're gaining 2 to 5% a year right there. Shane, I didn't mention this earlier. Shane works for Hopper Properties, a great company. They've got some good agents that work up there, and they're growing like crazy. He didn't know this, but me and his boss talk all the time about what's going on with their business and how they're growing and things they're doing. And it's just interesting to watch because I remember seeing when their first signs went up there in Jackson and some different big companies that are up there that have definitely gone backwards, and Hopper has gone forward. So they're definitely doing something right. Some great people to work with up there. And Shane said the counties he work in, and what basically that means, you know, your Hinds is Jackson, and then of course Yazoo is over by Yazoo City over towards the Delta, and all really, really good hunting. And as Shane was talking before the podcast, you know, like our Baton Rouge is their Jackson. So if a guy can get in his truck and drive 45 minutes an hour from from Jackson or Madison to Good Hunting. You know, that's where they want to be. And the Shane, correct me if I'm wrong. The closer you are to town,
Oh yeah, definitely the more
higher price.
higher price. Yeah, I would say lately the biggest influx of pricing we're seeing is probably in Yazoo County, just because Madison's growing and people want recreational property in Benton, Bentonia, especially. We're seeing prices just skyrocket. And you know, we saw this probably, I don't know, 2 years ago, and we said, man, it just seems like it's going to slow down, but it really hadn't. But you know, I work a lot of the Delta. You don't get as much, you know, I guess volume of sales out in the Delta, just because most farmers, they hold on to it for long term. So it's not a whole lot of volume that we see down in the Delta. I love selling stuff there and on the river, but it's just very few and far in between that people actually sell. But no, the Madison County, I mean, recreational property in it's obviously it's still booming. But it's a beautiful thing, and like you said, the land is appreciating. If just the timber alone, you're making money, but that's not counting the value of the dirt that it's actually increasing.
Now, when you said that, it made me think of something, Shane. I've been telling some of this for years, but here lately even more. Timber's awesome. You know, we all grew up in a timber industry, whatever. But I would say this: our dirt prices are outgrowing our timber prices in Southwest Mississippi. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, used to, I would say, even before I got in the actual selling of real estate, being a real estate agent, I helped a lot of people, you know, find properties and just mostly doing some wildlife habitat stuff for them. And I would go and say, hey, yeah, this looks like a good place for, you know, a long-term investment. And obviously the hunting would be good. We could do this to increase the habitat on it. But the dirt values, I mean, they're definitely outgrowing the timber prices. And I mean, it's crazy that what we see in the price of lumber at Home Depot, but we're not seeing it at our landowners getting that. But I think it's getting better. But
that's actually, I'm hearing that a lot. People, I've heard both ends of the spectrum. Oh, I hear timber ain't worth nothing, and then I hear, man, I saw the prices of wood. Timber's got to be doing real good. To answer everybody's question that has not hit Mississippi or Louisiana yet to the landowner, and what it is somebody apparently making a lot of money in the middle. But what they say is, you know, the workers in the factories and things like that with COVID is a supply and demand, just like everything else. Everything's going up. You know, what the seller's market is, you know, our inventory's down, so there's a high influx of buyers, low inventory. You know, it don't matter if you're selling shotguns or land. If there's only a few on the shelf and there's a lot of buyers, they're going to go for more. And it's the same way with the timber. But to go back to what we were talking about, our dirt is outgrowing our timber. And just to remind everybody, the way these prices, if Shane shows up at your house and he's going to list your 100 acres, he's going to know in the county, the area he's working in, he's going to know, okay, here's what the dirt usually sells for, here's what your timber sells for. And then, you know, if you have any amenities as far as camps or food plots or lakes or just a really unique feature, he's going to know what it sells for. And the way we go about pricing these things is basically we do the same thing an appraiser's going to do. We just don't put a stamp that says we're appraiser on it. And look, my appraisal buddies that might shoot me when I say this, but I honestly believe your good agents are the best way to get a value of the place, because it doesn't matter what it appraises for. What somebody will give you for it is what it's worth.
That's right. I mean, you know, just honestly, Southern Ag's probably one of my biggest helps finding values too, because if I'm looking at a property and can't.
What agent do you use with Southern Ag on there?
I would say Pate Mute probably is who I use the most, but they're all great. Kevin, he's really good, and they're really Jamie. Man, they're all great. Yeah, I like Jamie actually. Jamie is, I guess, he's been there a little longer. He's a little busier at times. But I actually sold Jamie a tract last year. Really nice place right outside of
Who did you use for financing?
I don't know. He may have jumped ship on him. I don't know. But no, Southern Ag, I mean, you know, in our world, like you said, what it's worth, what it appraised for, is that's where we get our comps. And a lot of times, you know, if we're having a certain piece of property that we're trying to find values for if we have trouble trying to get that number up. We may call Southern Ag Credit and say, hey, what do y'all have on the books? Because obviously there's some stuff that sells off the market, especially with the market we're in. We got a lot of buyers that want to try to find something. But at the end of the day, I mean, the seller's market, it gets frustrating for buyers that like, well, I don't want to buy right now because I feel like I'm overpaying. Well, at the end of the day, if it's comparable sales out there showing that value, obviously you're not overpaying. And when's the last time we've seen recreational land prices go down?
Even in '08, when the rest of the world's real estate values went down, ours may have done this, but it never went down. And that's something, any market or any product is gonna, they're gonna have ups and downs, but ours is steadily going up. Now, I just use the example for my family's property. My dad bought a big piece of family property we have in the early '90s for $450 an acre, and it's probably worth $4,000 an acre right now. And we've cut a whole generation of timber off of it since then. So it's a safe investment. I'm always trying to learn about money and where people are investing and the value of the dollar and this Bitcoin and all this. And I said this the other day, and you'll like this, Shane, is I've got buddies that are super into this cryptocurrency. And it's interesting, I watch it and pay attention to it on Facebook and listen to things about it. And the fact that Elon Musk or any other billionaire can tweet something and the market does this with stocks or cryptocurrency or whatever it is, let me tell you, I don't care who tweets what tomorrow. Land values, recreation values are still going to be going up. Don't matter. Donald Trump, Joe Biden, you name it, they can tweet anything they want to about land. And our values are not going to change, and that says something.
Oh, I agree. And it's, we're mostly, at least I do, I'm sure you too, mostly dealing with recreational land. I do commercial land, I do residential stuff too, but the recreational land prices, they don't get hit with the hikes, the ups and downs. It's a steady, like you said, increase. When '08 hit, the East Coast, West Coast, a lot of their land prices went down. House values went down, but here recreational values, they never really went down. They just may have stood still, and that's a lot to be said. And I get guys all the time that's getting close to retirement, and they're like, "Man, I gotta have all this money in the stock market, but it's on a computer screen to me. I can't touch, feel, and use it." So they want to invest in land. Now, granted, you don't have to sell everything you got in the stock market to get land, but
especially as cheap as it is to borrow money right now.
So I'm seeing, honestly, I would say in the past 30 days, I had 4 or 5 buyers that was going to pay cash for it. And, hey, I'm going to cash out my portfolio or cash some of it out. Well, guess what? They go talk to their investment banker and they're like, man, you're crazy. You can get interest, and it's almost interest free. So still getting to have your money in the stock market, you can have that and essentially have your increase, in values with your land and essentially interest free loan almost right now. And get to enjoy it. That's what I see more than anything. Somebody wants to do something with their money, actually get to touch and feel it, and while it's increasing in value.
Catch a fish on it, kill a deer. Look, I don't care what your interest rate is. I don't care what you paid for it. The other day when I left my place in Missouri, and applies to every client I have. The other day when I left my place and I stepped on the porch that they like to leave, there was a turkey hammering right down in that bottom by that 80 across the road. And I was thinking, you know what? This was a good idea buying this place. He was hammering down there. He'll be there next year when I go up there.
So you didn't have your gun?
Well, it's a little bit after the season, but
Man, my grandfather told me only season he knew was salt and pepper.
That's right. You know what? Man made hunting season and God made turkeys. I'm going with the big man.
That's right. I didn't ever see in the good book talk about hunting seasons and times and all that.
That's right. I've been doing these every morning on my update. I've been doing these verses of the day, and I've not come across one yet that said, only hunt during hunting season. And we're picking. Okay, we're just picking here. But all right, a couple of things. I'll make sure we go down our list. I have my little list here of things to go down. Let's make sure we define this. What is the seller's market? All right. You have buyer's market, you have a seller's market. Right now we have low inventory, so we have a seller's market. That means, for lack of a better word, the sellers are in control. They can demand higher prices, at asking price or above, or at appraisal price or above. And that's one thing that we're protected by, on our Mississippi contracts and on a lot of states' contracts. There's a little box you check on this property has to appraise. So if you do make an offer and it doesn't appraise, it gives you some protection. Now, we're in such a seller's market right now that the seller might say, I don't care if it doesn't appraise, because if you don't buy it, somebody will be here tomorrow. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. And you can't, as a buyer, get frustrated, because if you put yourself in the seller's shoes, and Shane and I have to do this, or any agent has to do this, you have to say, okay, let's just step back and look at everybody's situation. And if you're a seller, of course, you want to get the most you can for your land. Now, if you're a buyer, you want to get it for the best value you can. So we try to get somewhere that everybody's comfortable. And if a client, I feel like he's paying more than a property's worth, and I'll say, listen, I think this is more than it's worth, but if you want it, and I'm just going to throw this out there, look, money's money, and $10,000 and $10,000 and $100,000 is $100,000, but if you're buying $1 million piece of property, I ask clients, I literally ask them this all the time. I say, listen, if they're thinking about, okay, you want to offer this much money or this much money, I ask them, I say, is this $25,000 or is this $50,000? Are you gonna be mad if you don't get it because of this? And we're talking about $1 million or $2 million property. They said, you darn right I'll be mad. I said, well, don't offer $25,000 less or $50,000 less. If you're gonna be mad, because something can happen in between, another buyer can come in, and then real estate, what can happen will happen. And it's the weirdest thing. When somebody makes an offer on a property, it's like it gets magnetized, and everybody's, oh, I'm interested now. And it's weird. So right now, in this seller's market, which we just defined, the sellers are in control. If you see a property you like, act fast and act hard. And I'm going to ask you a question on that, Shane. What are you having to do different with your buyers as far as offers now? Okay, are you there's a thing called some escalation clauses, and there's a people are making their offers different than they did maybe 18 months ago. So, last year was busy. And I don't know if this year getting busier.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I said last year, man, it couldn't get any busier. It's great. Real estate market's doing great. But I agree. I mean, I think I'm busier this year than I was last year. And I would say what's different this year is I want to say sellers are kind of more used to this market, because we thought it was going to slow down. And sellers have seen it, going for, obviously well over a year. So they know what they got. So I would say, the escalating clauses and stuff like that. I mean, I've seen it. But I tell buyers the same thing you tell them. Look, you want to offer this. Is it going to really bother you to miss this property? Because it's possible that somebody else can come in, or the seller don't take it. And when you're dealing with negotiations, it's a lot of emotions. So you want the buyer to be in a good place. You want the seller to be in a good place. So essentially, everybody's like, hey, well, I don't want to insult them, but at the end of the day, it's trying to get that property, and knowing what you need to do for your buyer to make sure they can get it. I mean, obviously, we can't tell the future, but we obviously can tell them, just like, hey, what is $10,000 to you if you miss this? And if they say, well, it really ain't that big a deal, then we may want to get right on the front end, because you may not get that second chance. And that's obviously, we can't tell the future, but at the end of the day, what's $10,000-$20,000 on $1 million piece of property over the life of you owning it?
That's right.
Peanuts.
Mm-hmm. If you're planning on giving it to your grandchildren,
yeah,
that's not going to matter.
That is, I would say, buying land for most people, and that's probably why I enjoy it more than anything. 90% of the buyers that buy land isn't necessarily buying it for themselves. Mm-hmm. And it's the most unselfish act, I think, that a human can do for a family. I mean, something that you want to buy and leave for generations to come. I mean, that's something to be said. I mean, we buy cars, we buy houses, but we buy a lot of things. But when they buy a piece of land, it's the only thing that they possibly could leave for generations in their family. And that's probably one of the most enjoyable parts for me, because you get to see it, mm-hmm. and you get to hear the stories. So 20 years, if your family owns it for 20, 40 years, Well, $20,000.
Right.
I mean,
No, it will be irrelevant then. You're 100% right. That's it's always fun, like Shane said, when you get a client that sends you a picture of a big giant deer and you're like, or the who cares about the giant? The first 4 point, the grandson killed, or the turkey, or the fish, or just riding four-wheelers or whatever. That's what it's all about. And look, I don't want anybody listening to this thing and say, "Oh, them rich real estate agent said 10,000." No, we didn't say $10,000 wasn't a lot of money, because I'll fight you over it right now. But you have to put yourself in perspective. And something Shane said, it's a huge topic. Anytime you're in negotiation, we're usually dealing with successful business people, or doctors, like whatever, people that have done good with their money usually, and they want to win a negotiation. And sometimes you have to say, look, the goal isn't to win. The goal is about this property. And let's not get, it's easy for us because we do it every day, but let's not get emotional about that $10,000 or $50,000. Let's be smart about this. Because I couldn't tell you, and every agent listening to this would say the same thing. How many, well, look, he going to insult me with that. Look, no, he just wrote a number on a paper.
It's business. Don't take it personally.
Yeah, he didn't poke you in the eye. He wrote a number on a piece of paper. Let's not take it. All right, well, I'm going to keep going down the list, Shane. So, as you kind of touched on a little bit, so you think your year's going better this year than last year?
Yeah, I would say I'm probably up about 15% of probably what it was from last year.
Wow.
But obviously it's all client-based too, because sometimes you have a bigger track and some smaller, because you got to do the same amount of work sometimes on a smaller track as you do on a big track. But I would say what I see more than anything is the big tracks are selling, a lot faster and a lot better values than we were seeing before.
Whenever you're going, if it's housing or recreational land or commercial, whatever, when you're listing a piece of property right now, I know I have an opinion of this right now. I want to hear your opinion. I'm taking a couple of listings that I would beat the seller up a little bit more on, higher price, because right now some of those things are selling for prices that I didn't think they'd sell for. Are you seeing the same?
Yeah, I agree, and it's kind of, and I call myself, I'm not the yes man, and a lot of people say, hey, I want this.
You're not an order taker.
Yeah, I'm not, hey, well, I want to list it for this, well, we're not going to be able to show value for comps. It's not going to praise for that, and so you're right. Obviously it kind of goes against what our common logic is when we're going to list a property, because most people in the past, they didn't pay more than appraised value,
right,
unless it possibly touched them or they had some sort of interest in the property. But nowadays, sellers and, most people that own land that's selling, it's owned it for a long time, for at least 5 to 20, 30, 40 years. I sold a couple of tracts in the past 6 months. It's been in their family for over 100 years.
Wow.
So, it's a lot of emotional ties for a seller to sell something. So obviously when they get a number in their head, I always ask, hey, where did you get the number? Because, we got to figure out how you come up with that. Because on paper, when it comes to appraising, we got to figure out how to make it work. But I would say, we are getting more than we would normally get for properties just because it's the inventory thing. But yeah, I would say it's tougher on us listing agents because, if you tell them, hey, it's worth this, and the next guy rolls up and said, hey, it's worth this, they're normally going to try to go with the person that said the highest number.
Shane is touching on something that's so important right now, and it could devote a whole podcast to it. And I listened to somebody else on a different podcast talking about this the other day, and I was like, wow, I do this, but I didn't realize I did it. So what I said to Shane a second ago, Shane's not an order taker. Any good agent is not an order taker. An agent is there to advise you. And look, sellers, buyers, if you're being stupid, they're there to advise you if you're making a stupid move. You can't think that you step into our arena. And what I mean our arena is real estate. We're professionals. No different than you go to a doctor, or if somebody's good at their job, you need to listen to them. So if they're telling you, look, this is not smart, the decisions you're making, you need to listen. If somebody just says, yeah, I'll list it for that, yeah, it's worth that, they're just a car salesman. If they're saying, and if they're just saying yeah to everything you say, you need to say, maybe I'm with the wrong person. Maybe I'm doing the wrong things. You need to have somebody that's educated. And Shane, I want you to touch on this. I talked to a seller about this week. And they said, well, they were trying to list it, of course, a lot higher than I recommended. I said, well, listen, I realize your goal is to get the most money for your property. It's my goal too, but guess what? Because every dollar you make, I make a percentage of that. So it's my goal too. But my goal is to sell your property. And to get the most amount of money for your property, it may actually be for listing it for less. And market rust is a real thing. And in this new age of the past 10 years of how people buy property on the internet, I think it's quantified even more. It's like times 10, because if you put an ad for a piece of property, I don't care how many times the assistants and people in the front office delete it, it don't go away. If you list a piece of property, I can go find your listing somewhere on some site. It's still going to be there in Google. You can't erase it. And so if you list it way above value, people look at it like Shane and I was away. If one of our clients asks about you, it's overpriced, and we move on. We don't even know the numbers because they're so irrelevant. But if you list it just a little above, just like, okay, that's close, I can see this, maybe I need to go look at that to see why it's worth a little bit more. That's how you get the most money for your property. But if you put it, an extra 10, 15, 20, whatever percent, nobody shows up. And then in 6 months, when you get to a real value, still nobody's going to show up. So to summarize that, in order to get the maximum value for your property, maybe actually listing it for less.
I totally agree. I mean, it's, you said, I mean, it's like, and once you start dropping the price, if you list it too high, you look vulnerable. Mm-hmm. So you're not less likely somebody's going to say, well, he's been dropping it, so I'm sure he'd take less. And they automatically think that the seller's in some kind of bind, that they got to sell it. All the while, you just listed it too high. Mm-hmm. I mean, actually, me and Slade just talking about this on a piece of property that me and him were going to co-list, and we told the seller what it was worth, and he didn't want to list it for what we wanted to, and we said, well, hey, we understand, but you're just going to waste your own time. Well, guess what he got for that piece of property? Exactly to the penny what we told him it was worth.
After the fourth, Shane and I, another good buddy of mine, and then another good buddy of mine who actually listed and sold it, congrats to him, but it was the fourth realtor that told him the same thing. And they got a real good value for the property and a really good value for it. But it was $250,000, or 25% less than where he wanted to list it from the beginning. So, it just took 4 people to tell him. Unfortunately, we weren't any of the people that got paid, but that happens sometimes.
It's all good. But at the end of the day, it's just staying, I would say, being trustworthy. Even if you're not going to make money in it, because a lot of people, they want somebody to tell them yes. Hey, yeah, I can get that for your property. Mm-hmm. Where at the end of the day, I mean, if you tell them the truth, and even if you don't sell it, they'll know that you told them the truth at the end, and they have to just trust. I mean, it's a lot of trust. I mean, because obviously we're dealing with some people's biggest assets that they have in their life. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you want to do the best you can for them, and like you said before, trust me, we want to sell it. Mm-hmm. I mean, if we list it, we're not making any money. It's costing us money if it's not selling, because we're spending a lot of money on marketing and time. And time is something in the real estate world. I know you deal with it. I deal with it. I can't get to everybody. Mm-hmm. So every person that you meet with, you want to make it work. But at the end of the day, time is the only thing we can't get back.
That's right. It's the most valuable asset we have. And speaking of what you're talking about, I had a client yesterday. It was a $2 million deal. And I went and looked at it for him, hoping to list it. And then once I got there and digged into it a little more, and I was knowing what he was possibly wanting for it, and I said, well, look, I think it's worth this. And I'll tell you, look, he thought it was worth about, $5,000 an acre. And I said, look, I think best case scenario, 4,500. And this is an area, I mean, a really good area, a really big tract, and just giant timber and just a really cool area. And he said, well, look, I can get, I won't say too much, I can get this for it. And I told him, I said, listen, you can believe every word I'm about to say, because I'm going to make $0. You need to take that right now. And I said, even if you list it with me, I got to get mine on top of that. I said, you need to take that right now. And he said, well, man, I really appreciate it. If something happens, I'm going to definitely call you to talk about signing up and listening. And I said, but look, I'm telling you, you need to take that right now. And you got to be like that. You got to be trustworthy. And because I guarantee you that client one day, he'll be back and he's got friends and that's what you want to be. And it's actually hard to overcome the car salesman mentality. So this is such a new age we're in. In the past, I've been doing real estate 15 years now. And when I first started 15 years ago, there was still the old guard, if you will, of the Rolodex, the people that were in your phone, signs in the yard. These are the guys you call. Like the internet, of course, 15 years ago was a big thing, but it was not what it is now. Like if you had a good website, you were actually different. Oh, he's got a good website, and most people don't. Most people, this is who you call. They know about properties. They know landowners, and there was a lot of hustling and backdoor dealing. And I'm not saying everybody was like this, but there was a lot of stuff that went on. Like, oh man, we'll sell in this tract, we'll cut the timber, you know. But look, information is so easy to get to now. People that do that last no time in the market anymore. You know, one bad Google and you know, 100,000 people know about it. So, you know, I think it's hard to get over that fact, and that's one thing I preach to my clients. And if you go and ask 20 of my clients, they say, look, you can trust Slade. You know, he's going to tell you the truth. And I know Shane's the same way. You know, listen, I'm not, your one deal is not going to make or break me. And that's cool to be in a position. I know Shane's in that position in his market. So it's not worth it to me. I don't, you know, if I don't close your deal tomorrow, me and my family are going to still eat, which is the most important thing. And so that's a good position to be in, and you can, you know, it's easy to tell the truth because you're not in a position where you got to close tomorrow. Well, we've kind of covered a lot of this seller's market stuff, so we're going to get to the real important part of the podcast. All right, Shane, what you got going on for deer season this year? Is it on your brain yet, or are you too busy at real estate? I saw you at the beach last week, so I know you like Craig Fitz at the beach.
Well, deer, I actually was talking to a buddy about a deer lease that he's getting into while I was waiting on Slade, because I was actually early for once this morning. But yeah, deer is always on the brain. I mean, I got some home farms that I hunt that's within 5-10 minutes of the house. I actually got some cameras out now. They actually got pretty decent bone on their head already.
Where are yours at up there right now?
Some I'd say right around the ears. A couple of them. Some of them.
Some forked.
Yeah, some forked, barely forked. Some just coming out of the.
It's
kind of weird how they. But our breeding season in Mississippi is all over the place.
I've got one deer that lives in front of my house, and I'm 95% sure it's him already. He's on his 3s already. And he's a 7. I think he's 7, maybe older. Found his sheds last year. I'm 90% sure it's a deer I call Pokey. And he's so far ahead, and he dropped his sheds in February, which normal time. So it's weird.
Yeah, I think it's just our Mississippi breeding season, the fawning, that they're all over the place. Mm-hmm. So I think it's kind of hard for all our deer to get in the same growing spell. Same thing. I mean, I've seen fawns last year in January.
Right.
I mean, which is crazy, but that is normal for Mississippi. But no, it's definitely, the hunting is always on the brain. I mean, I would say this sounds crazy, but I get more out of, I guess, now just going and talking with other people and hearing their stories than I do out of my own.
Because he's killed way too many big deer.
And well, my daughter Swayze keeps me to the ground, because if I show her pictures of deer, I can't go hunting without her.
How old is she now?
She is 6.
And she's killed a couple of deer already.
Yeah, she killed her first deer when she was 3 with a crossbow. Mm-hmm. So she killed her first.
That means Asa this fall. We got to get her over one.
She and last year, and I hate to say this, but the generation of hunting that some people, the big bucks, you got to be a big deer, and kids killing giant deer, and really didn't have to hunt for it. Like, I didn't let her shoot a buck until this past year. Mm-hmm. Like, it was does.
Pretty good buck too.
Yeah, it was a good Colt 7-point that she shot with the crossbow. It was actually first day of bow season. And we had a really nice 10-point that was coming, probably 150 something inch deer, but I didn't want her to shoot it, not because I saved it for myself, because I wanted to earn it. I mean, I hate to say it like that, and I didn't kill the deer. We could have killed the deer. We let him live. But it's kids nowadays, when we were hunting, I mean, we saw a deer.
What was your first deer?
It was a doe.
No, it was a 4-point.
I mean, it was like 80 pounds. Shot it with a 410 slug. Never will forget it. But it's I don't know. I mean, I think our generation and after us, they're kind of missing the hunt, you know.
And that's something I talk to clients about all the time on the buggy when we're riding. You know, we're talking about, you know, they're buying the property for their kids. And look, I'm as into deer management as anybody. But you, as fathers, you know, you look at this totally different. Like, at some point, whenever you killed your first deer, when you had your first feeling, whenever your first 20 deer, growing the biggest deer you could ever grow wasn't even in the conversation. I want to go deer hunting.
Yeah, I want to shoot something.
I want to shoot. And look, there ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And with cameras and stuff these days, that's what's done it because we know what's there.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
You know, and so I don't know. I'm going to be real. I don't know. I got a lot of thinking to do about. I got a new baby boy, Rafe, and Asa, and Bentley. Bentley's killed a deer and he's killed a turkey, but he's not super into it. I think he's getting more into it a little bit. But it's all us fathers of this age. We got to figure out how we're gonna navigate new deer hunting without messing up our kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's the problem I see is like they'll kill a big deer at a really young age and kind of lose interest, in my opinion. But and it may not be the trophy; it may be just how we're doing it. But I don't know. I guess think about how long it was before you killed a 130-inch deer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
a really long time.
I mean, I would say I think I was 13, 14 years old.
And what's even different is when Shane and I were young, unless you turned on TNN, like Outdoor Channel wasn't even around, unless you turned on TNN or you had a Monster Bucks tape. Yeah, I said tape. Do you know what that is, Ryan? They was these big black things, you know. But unless you had that, like to see a 130-inch deer, you had to turn on the TV. Like I remember, like deer to this day that people drug up to different deer camps and stuff, rode around on the hood of the truck because you couldn't send it on a cell phone. There wasn't even cell phones. That were probably 130-inch deer. I can remember to this day these giants because I was like, oh wow. I mean, he must be the best hunter ever. That big old 8-point he killed, you know. And now, you know, it's like, and you see these memes about it, but it's so true. It's like, did you have any pictures of him? You have any sheds of him last year? Yeah. Like, what you think he scored? How old is he? Who cares? I mean, look, I'm into that too. I'm super into it. Like, I mean, I want everybody to let one go to their 5 and bow hunt and do it but I mean, at the end of the day, I think we're missing the boat.
The beauty of it is, though, is you know as well as I know, and this is any state, not just Mississippi, but only probably 10 to 15% at most of our bucks will become trophy deer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so kids, you got plenty of bucks from the shoot that not necessarily the biggest. So I mean, calling deer, I mean, I think that's where we're missing out more than anything. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to shoot the calls. You know, I don't care what it is. You know, if he's 4 or 6 years old, I want to let the air out of him.
And that's one thing that I think that if you look at, I told somebody on the buggy yesterday, I said, listen, I've killed a couple over 170. I think I've killed like 12 or 14 over 150. I told somebody the other day, I said, if a 130-inch deer, if a 125-inch deer walks by me opening day of bow season, you won't find a happier hunter in Mississippi. I'm just, I think the reason is I have a rule in Mississippi, if he's 4 years old and older with my bow, unless I'm on somebody's place, that the rules are different. If he's 4 years old and older with my bow, I don't shoot him. Whatever. I'm not saying I haven't ever passed one up. In fact, we passed up a 5-year-old last year. I'm trying to grow the best one I ever killed in Mississippi and be like Shane. But and it's just so fun. Look, I still get pumped up over a doe. I mean, literally in the past 5 years, I picked up my rifle in a box stand and had to put it down because my heart was beating too fast on a doe. And I don't know if everybody's like that, but this is what I tell people who don't hunt. I ask them, okay, did you play football? Yeah, I played football. I said, do you remember opening kickoff, big game playoffs? And like, you knew that, you know, if you're a headhunter on the kickoff team, you're about to hit somebody, and that feeling, that's deer hunting. Or that's when you can hear him drumming right over the ridge. Or that's when you hear those mallards circling and you can't see them yet, but you know they're about to be in the decoys. I'm speaking Ryan language now, big duck hunter, you know. But that's deer hunting, and Shane's done it. Ryan hadn't done it. And the elk, that's just a whole That may be the state championship on the last play of the game.
It's turkey hunting on steroids. I mean, turkey hunting is probably my favorite thing, and the only thing about an elk is they can smell.
Good.
And turkeys, if they could smell, it would be the same as elk hunting. It'd be really hard to kill them. But yeah, I mean, I would say, like you said, I mean, it's the adrenaline rush that you get that it's undescribable until you're in the moment. And I would say it's Joe Montana said it best. The great ones figure out how to slow that moment down when it feels so fast. So anytime you get in the moment, that deer isn't running. That turkey ain't running. He's doing his thing. He does this every day. Slow it down. Take your time.
And see, I've had to figure out, like, I've guided a lot of people, so you figure out different ways people process it and stuff like that. My process is forget all of it. When you see him, he knows you're a shooter, your goal is to kill him. Like, I'm in kill mode. And if I think about it, I'm going to try to put it right there. That's when it all messes up. That's when the target pin at. But if the best thing can happen to me, if a booner walks on me in Iowa, it's happening real fast. That's the best. All instinct then. But if they come in and you got to think about it for a long time or watch him come all across the field, then you're like, oh, everything's good, nothing. Body, that's good. Oh, camera on. Oh, no, that's when it gets you.
I would say Swayze.
Girls do it better.
I get more nervous than her. I don't know if y'all seen any of the little turkey hunts I have with her. I'm over here shook up, like barely can talk, and she's over here just calm and cool and collected, you know, and just smokes them.
Girls, and guiding over the years, I've seen this. Young, old, doesn't matter. Girls don't put the pressure on themselves that we do. You know, we're testosterone. Yeah, I shot a 150-inch deer, 200 yards running with, 50-mile-an-hour wind. Where were you sitting? That kind of thing. Girls are like, yeah, Daddy just told me to put it on there and squeeze the trigger, and he fell over. Like, they don't put emotion into it.
Man, I totally agree. And Swayze's teaching me a lot about hunting, and it's changes. I mean,
how old's your youngest one?
2. Shaylee is, she loves watching the turkey hunting. But Shaylee's probably gonna be different. I don't think she's gonna have the patience that Swayze does. She's like, I want something now.
Are we gonna try for a little boy, or are we done?
I told my wife after Shaylee, she's so rough. She's crazy. I mean, like Swayze was like the prodigy child. Like Easy can almost take care of herself. Shaylee, it's every minute you gotta be watching her because she's gonna get in something. She's gonna tear it up. Or she's gonna hit somebody with the broomstick.
That's Asa. And Bentley's like calm, cool, collective. He's very kind of a shyer child. Asa will stomp in that door. What's your name? Come on, we going out here. Like the difference is like Bentley, like okay, I'll shoot the deer and take my time. This is a true story. Asa, this happens almost every day now. Like so, the first time I brought Asa in a box in last day of deer season this year, she was I guess just turned 3. We're all in the box stand, really just there to look at deer at the house. And the first doe steps in, she wants to gonna shoot at Daddy. Like, oh, and then, so I've got a thermal every night. I've been checking my front field because I've got 2 hogs been coming in there. And I told her last night, I said, there's 2 deer to feed her up there. And she said, shoot them, Daddy. I mean, she's something.
Killer. But no, it was kind of a bittersweet story when COVID hit last year. Swayze had her Eastern already in Mississippi and had her Florida turkey Osceola already killed, or he already had the rest of the trip lined out. She was going to be one of the youngest girls or kids ever to complete the Grand Slam.